Ready, set, go.
Welcome to the Duocast. I'm Marksman, alongside my duo, Dr CeeJ.
Hey everyone.
So, rank play released earlier than ever, but with that, there's a lot to improve on in the mode. But let's be positive. Let's talk about the good things with rank this year so far. What do you notice, CeeJ?
I noticed a lot of like good movement and a lot of good general gunplay. Um, and the maps feel a little better than I expected.
Yeah, I think the mechanics themselves are really good. I like the ranked system itself. You get the skins. You don't have to wait till the end of the season. You get it as soon as you hit the level. Stuff like it's little stuff. The voting I don't know if I like, but I think it's a good feature to add. Depending on I don't know. You don't get to play certain maps, but I don't think that's always a bad thing. But overall, I think we got a lot of good there. And I mean, you mentioned the maps as a good, but personally, that's kind of my bad for that, because I think these are probably the worst launch maps I've ever seen a Treyarch game come out with.
Yeah.
I mean, just personally, I'm thinking about Red Card's terrible. Rewind is terrible. I like Protocol, but it's weird. I'm trying to think. Vault's okay. It's just really small. Like, I just don't think there's a good balanced map. There's not a raid in here or a Moscow where it feels good. And they're adding Hacienda, but I think they're gonna have to do a lot of post-launch work to get a good map pool for like by the end of the year or something like that. What do you got for that though?
Well, I was mainly pointing out like it just feels better than I thought they would. Because I don't necessarily, I agree with you. They're not necessarily the best of maps compared to years past. We don't have the traditional 3-lane maps in these, and we don't have everybody knows that have been playing COD for some time now that 3-lane maps make the most sense. They play the best for any game mode, really.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they lied to us and said, hey, this is going to be a 3-lane maps in the launch video or whatever. So that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the maps could definitely be better. What do you got for ugly right now? I know there's a lot out there.
There is. A lot of the ugly right now is just a lot of the spawns and then the cheaters and just like some of the guns that are in at the moment. And also another thing too is that there's crossplay is forced. Consoles can't get out of PC lobbies. Like that's another thing that I could add.
Yeah, I think that may be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's just, even if we don't want to leave for the hackers, let's be real. There's a clear difference from PC to console. You know, it's fine. You can own a PC, but don't make me deal with your shit. It just doesn't make sense. Competitive integrity. Honestly, I think it'd be better if they locked you into your own, because that way, you couldn't play with friends in that way. But that way you could, I don't know, like, what's the word? But you could play level competition. Where this, I'm rarely getting straight up gunfights.
Well, I was fine with before because there was at least the option to be able to. That way, you could play with friends that were PC or another console, and it honestly sucks right now because we don't have that choice, and a lot of the especially I guess like in the higher ranks that I'm seeing, like a lot of people are upset about it because they have to deal with the even PC players are having to deal with the other PC players on that with the hacks and stuff, which is just more intense than say just the Cronus Zens and the small hacks with consoles.
Yeah, definitely agree. Even Dashy today on the game chat thing, he mentioned that they don't even play it anymore. And I mean, it came out a week ago. Tomorrow, actually. So I think that's fair. For me, I think the ugliest thing is that every AR and SMG are allowed. Yet again, like, we can't figure this out. Last year, I think, did a better job with this until, like, the end of the year. But right now, like, being allowed to use every AR and SMG, it's stupid. I mean, if we're playing a game mode to simulate competitive COD without having to sign up for tourneys, have a team, all that. I don't want to be playing a squad with Prigs, M4s, and SOGs. I think you have two options. You make a 4v4 mode that isn't full comp, or make like a make like a pro mode that restricts everything but pro classes, kind of like the private match setting in Cold War had. Or just pay more attention, ban the OP guns and the DLC guns in rank, so everyone can just like hop on, chill, play what the pros are playing, and actually, I don't know, feel like they're playing like obviously not as good as the pros, but playing the same game. Whereas now it kind of it just feels like I'm playing a better pub.
Yeah. It really does feel simply like a better pub, just because there's not as many people and we're not having to deal with as many explosions.
That is true. Fewer explosions, equal amounts of rage, personally. But yeah, I mean, it's early. Came out, like we said, a week ago. I mean, it's too early for me to say it's gonna be trash. But I think a few things are going against it. The game itself, with the maps, and I don't know why they always do that with the guns every year. It's like people complain about it, they just don't care. And I don't know. So at some point they'll figure it out, or I don't know. I think it just makes it hard to play, especially with the hackers. I mean, there's hackers at every level. It used to be the higher up you got, then you ran into them. Now, I mean, there's hackers everywhere. It's kind of like it's easy to hack or something. I hope it's not like way too easy, but it seems like it is because they're everywhere.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if Ricochet, if we're assuming Ricochet is real, a lot of the times it feels like the hackers are just ahead of the game. Like, the people that make the hacks, they're just ahead of the game, ahead of the Ricochet. Yeah, it's just not. They just can't keep up.
I mean, that would make some sense, but yeah. I mean, what are we gonna do? They'll figure it out eventually. But I think we should move on to our next segment. All right, let's do the top dogs. So in this, I will rank my top 8 teams going into the season, and after that, CeeJ will tell me pretty much how dumb I am for who I picked. So let's start. All right, number 8, I got the LAG Gentle Mates, LAG Mates. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Whatever they're calling themselves this year. I like what they're going for with the build, bringing in the core of the championship NYSL team. I think that's a smart idea, but with Linz, he's not Hydra, obviously. Everyone knows that. But so with that, I think they're getting significantly worse. And you got Kismet and Priest that coming off a so-so year, if you're being generous. Both of them kind of struggled a little bit last year. So that's what I got. At 7 is Toronto Ultra. I think they're making the best out of a bad situation. They lost their best 2 guys and got solid but not great replacements for him. I like Beans, and if Insight returns to form, it might be a dark horse team, but I need to see it first. I think Joe's not a bad pickup, but he's definitely not the same kind of player as Envoy, so they're gonna struggle a little bit there. Rocker at 6, they got a lot of young talent on the team, which I like. I'm not sure how it will pan out, but based on pure talent, I like the idea behind the roster. I like Paul X returning as well. He's a solid guy. We'll have to see, but I mean, they should be fighting to get to a few Sundays. I think that's a reasonable expectation for them. I wouldn't say that they're expected to win anything on Sundays, but I think they should get there compared to last year's team. Surge was probably my favorite landing spot, like when I was thinking about free agents last year, at least in the early off season, which is why I have them at 5. I like Abuza and 04. They're young, talented, nasty ended strong last year. But I don't like the Hixie pickup. I think it'll make them a bit worse, personally. Based on what I've seen from 04, I don't think that's like the best duo out there. And I definitely don't think it can compete with the top 4 duos. I would have went with a cracked sub for the role over Hixie, just personally. If anyone cared to ask me, which they did not. Cloud9 at 4. I like the roster. They are at a bit of a talent gap from the top 3, in my opinion. I think over time you'll see them overcome it with good coaching, sort of like Surge and Vanguard. But right now, I think 4 seems fair. Glad to see Attach on a good team finally. Like all those guys are obviously really solid. So we'll see what they can do. I think I'd be shocked if they're super good at the beginning of the year, but I think they'll improve as we go on. FaZe is at 3 for me. I think it's good they won EWC, but I think that also band-aided some of the issues they had, and they just haven't fixed. It's early, but I wouldn't be shocked if this team struggled early on in the year and even made a change at some point, like worst case scenario. I know it's a little doom and gloom. But I would also not be shocked if they win Major 1. That's kind of why they sit at 3. I think this team goes either way depending on what they worked on this offseason. So, all right, Optic at 2. Yeah, it felt odd to put them here. They're the world champs, obviously. And, I mean, nothing's really changed. I really bounced the idea of putting them at 1 around in my head, but I think they're solid too. They didn't get worse. In fact, with Omni Movement, I expect a step up in dominance from them with Shotzi and everyone else. But I don't think they're the best built roster, and that's obviously because of number 1, Thieves, who they built a super team, let's be honest. It's a predictable thing to put the super team at 1. And I may be wrong, but they just won a LAN versus Optic and Slam FaZe twice in that. So I think that has some weight to how they are going to mesh as a unit. Before that, I was kind of on the, I don't know, if they're good or bad. I was thinking they're going to be good, but like, are they going to be better than Optic and FaZe? I think that showed a little bit of that. Scrapper and Hydra on the same team should be illegal. I think they might be why salary cap comes in at some point or something like that. Obviously, I think they'll fry early on in the season. Who knows how it goes as we progress through the year, but going in, I like them as the favorites. I think they should be expected to win Major 1 and kind of dominate this first stage. So, all right, CeeJ, time to bring you in. That's the list.
Alrighty.
What stands out to you? Go ahead.
I would honestly have Surge above Cloud9. And that's because I think Cloud9's kind of, especially right now in the beginning, I imagine 04, Abusa, and the other players do pretty good compared to Cloud9. I think Cloud9 will end up catching up around Major 2, Major 3, though.
So you agree with me on Cloud9 kind of struggling at the start, figuring it out towards the end? Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair way to go. What else?
Let's see. I agree with the top three, and I do agree like with the fact that with FaZe, I think if they do make a change though, it would likely end up being Cell. That's at least the route I would go. And some people might think I'm faded for that take, but I've been thinking it since Vanguard. And then there's the only thing, like I do agree with like Thieves 1, Optic 2. But I do think knowing these like dominant personalities, they don't really have like somebody like it's gonna be a true test for Ghosty to like and Hydra to like lead the team to kind of mesh in a sense. So like later down the year, I can imagine them kind of tapering off and Optic kind of overtake them.
Yeah, I think that's
but and I can also see a potential for Ultra to be a little better than Rocker, especially since we're going to see Insight back on a Treyarch game, and as well as Kleenex. Like yeah, they were nasty back in BO4, and they were freaking phenomenal back in Cold War. I think Beans is a really good potential pick alongside Insight. My question though is Joe Deceives though. Whether or not he can keep up or it's going to be a solid enough kind of sidekick to Kleenex.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. The reason I got Rocker above Ultra, just they seem more cracked to me. I think that they'll be able to out talent some teams, especially if Insight's not having his best year like last year. But I can definitely see Insight being on a Treyarch game and frying. So, final thing before we move on, do you have a team that you'd like to see in the top 8 that isn't, or no?
Ravens.
And
honestly,
who would you put out?
I would. God, that's a tough one. Which one would I take out? I'd probably want to take out probably Gentlemates.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Probably them.
Yeah, I mean, I did say beforehand, I was kind of on the line with them as well. But we'll have to see. I'm really interested to see these first qualifiers. We'll get some of that info before the next episode and kind of see what we expected and what we didn't expect from some of these teams. Because there's always one team where you're like, they were bad. What? Can't believe it. Like Breach last year. And a team that's like, oh, they're really good for some reason. And I don't know which team's going to do that, but I'm excited to see because it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, it does.
Especially with the top 3 being solidified so much. But I think that's fair enough for that. All right. So let's get into the GA drama. Going on right now, there's a lot of different stuff. But the first thing I want to kind of talk about is what we're thinking about the sniper, the SOG, and the knife getting the boot here before the first set of matches. Good.
I will say, first things first with the sniper. I strongly disagree with that take. You kind of need snipers in S&D. I'm sorry, some teams just don't use them. Don't have a sniper on their team, and that's all right. You don't have to have one to be great, but there is some stuff with that. For the SOG, I think that's kind of a bit of a weird GA, but I also kind of get it in the perspective of it's a DLC gun. We've hardly ever, if ever, used a DLC gun in comp. I don't think we ever have. So I think that one, in that sense, makes sense. And then the knife, I honestly don't understand that one whatsoever.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on most of that. The knife thing, honestly, such a random thing to do, especially when you're using a bat. You got the full-time knife. Yeah, that was a little odd. I think they could have done something where you could run with it, just not use it as a weapon. Who knows? Just it's an interesting thing. But at the end of the day, with the whole sniper, I think it was bad enough that you just leave it in without smokes. I don't. You're getting hit markers. There's no attachments allowed on it. You're probably not going to use it much, which is kind of the point, right? Why are you getting rid of something that is a tactical option if you have it in, but at the same time, probably not going to be seeing it as much as you would think. So I don't fully get that. I think it would have been fine, kind of like Vanguard was with the sniper. You saw it sometimes, but it was usually a map or two that it worked. Rarely was it worth pulling out. So I think that's what they should have just done. The SOG, I mean, it's a DLC gun, so I tend to think no DLC guns in the game. I know people were on it because it's not that OP. Personally, it's about the same as the Jackal. In my opinion, Jackal may be a little better in most scenarios. So I see the outrage with it just because the SOG's a well-known gun from BO4. But it's a DLC gun. We don't use DLC guns. Everyone knows that. Even the new people kind of get that at an early point. So
yeah,
I don't know. So I'm glad we agree on pretty much all that. But the whole other side of the argument is how these GAs are decided. Do you like the players being in control, or would you rather the league run it a little more strict? That way they could enforce it and kind of keep teams from abusing the system to get items out to, for these bad reasons instead of the entertainment value of a sniper or that. Do you think there should be regulation? You think the league should run it outright? What are your thoughts?
So I think there should. So I do think the players should have a certain amount of input because they are the ones competing, and there are times when there really are guns that are just too much. For example, like the XM4, the Model L at times. Hell, the Krig, those are like GAs that I think make universal sense. But I do think the league needs to either put together some kind of group that kind of oversees these GAs being done, or some kind of committee or something. Because some of these GAs kind of get out of hand. compared to, because at the end of the day, what makes this league possible are the fans.
Right. I mean, that's every entertainment league. And I hate to bring, because people are always on you if you bring in football or traditional sports. I think it's PTSD from MW19. Besides the point.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to like the idea they have like player safety kind of commissions where who's involved in that is coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, you got coaches for a reason. Some teams
Mm-hmm.
don't pay as much for the coaches. Maybe they don't even have one. But I think it's safe to say if you had coaches, the players can talk to them, and then they could meet once a month, discuss that, or if something is urgent, new release,
Mm-hmm.
something comes out, whatever it may be, talk about it, say, okay, we're teams are going to test this, our teams aren't. Have somebody at the league in control of like the meetings, kind of setting it up, all that.
Mm-hmm.
You can even, this was like a flank idea. They were like, have somebody like a Ben J. Nassim involved for like a community voice if you want to. I don't think you should give them a vote, but maybe just a voice at the table would be fine. But
Yeah.
that way, it's more structured. So we don't also deal with this, oh, you broke GAs. No, you didn't. And instead of just like, you don't get scrims for a week, you can have some real consequences. You can have some real structure. And it would improve the understanding of the roles for everybody. We have an arbitrary set of roles set by group chat of players as opposed to, and that was fine for a certain point, but I think COD's trying to legitimize itself in a way where it's hard to understand for newer people, and I think it hurts them because then people are like us, the viewer versus the pro player, when it just really isn't the case, and I think this would kind of help a lot of those tensions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because tensions are really high right now. More than they should be. In my mind, like this is really blown out of proportion.
Yeah, I mean it's every year. They're like, "What? That got G8?" Like, it may be disappointing, but let's not be shocked. I mean, we know what's going on.
No,
It's been the same pretty much since
but
the league started. So,
but I feel like there's a lot more outrage this year than I've seen in a long time,
and
if ever.
I think that's just a lot of people are tired of it
Mm-hmm.
because nothing's changed. But people are like, "All right, we're still getting rid of snipers. We're still doing GAing stupid shit." And I think that's valid, but at the same time, I think it's fair to say you could avoid that by doing the structure, and really nothing changes. I mean, Kenny's the representative for Optic. You think he just goes in there like, whoa, guessing? They do scrims, they talk about it. Nothing really changes, but it gives the league more power, and honestly, gives coaches something to do. That actually feels like a coach's job outside of analyzing stuff, because like that is what a manager kind of does in all sports and esports.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be the team's connection to the league, and I think that's a fair thing to ask, and I think it would help a lot because at the end of the day, you can blame the GA commission for something, and you don't have to go after players. And I think it cleans it up a little bit for a professional league, in my opinion.
It does.
But probably will never happen. It might. You never know. I think if enough people are like, something needs to change after this year, seeing the outrage, I think it could happen. But I think it starts with the players as well. I think they need to agree. It's a little annoying, and we can kind of figure something else out.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
that's
yeah.
And on another note too, like the way they have it now, and this is as far as I will go into this part of this discussion on the GA stuff, but the way I have it now is like a very very self-serving in some ways, and very like you know, not every it seems like and some people say it's like some of the teams don't really get much of a say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not even right.
No, it isn't. And I mean, hey, this is from a fan perspective, obviously. So we don't have that inside scoop like some do, but we're just, talking about what we can and honestly having fun with it, because at the end of the day, they're probably not going to listen to us, but at the same time, why not talk about it? Why not, add to the community as much as possible? And that's all we're doing. And like I said, if nothing changes, it's not going to shock us. We're not going to be too disappointed. But at the same time, I mean, maybe it will, and maybe that'll be a good thing. So, I mean, we could beat it to death, but we'll move on. And that's pretty much all we got, unless CeeJ can think of anything he forgot or wants to bring up before
I don't have anything.
He doesn't have anything, so that's it. I mean, we got more stuff to talk about here in 2 weeks. We're gonna have matches to break down. Maybe we'll talk about the team packs, which ones are trash, which ones are fire. Maybe something fun like that. We'll have to see how much there is to go off of, but yeah, we'll have matches. It's exciting.
I'm excited.
The off season's been longer and longer every year, it seems. So, yeah. We'll get into that, and finally, I must say, first of all, the end of the episode. Like, subscribe if you want to, and if you subscribe, you can easily find next episode. So, we got other stuff with our docu series and other announcements of stuff coming out soon. So we're just gonna keep going. Yeah, that's it for me. CeeJ, you want to say? Oh, happy Thanksgiving. Almost forgot. Okay.